Okay. Well, this is an interesting picture. And I think I told you when we started the study that I got a bunch of these pictures and then a verse from Isaiah under each one. That was sort of the theme. And so we do a different one each week. This particular one, Cindy and I happen to be on the campus of Notre Dame University, where she is a alma mater. And so this was a statue. That'd be a great statue, or a great picture. So I took a picture of it. And then my daughter took out all the trees and the sky and the bushes and the buildings that were behind there. So anyway, the Lord alone will be exalted on that day. And it's a day that we kind of look to, but it's a good way to sort of introduce this, this next section we have. If you remember the outline of this first part of the book, so this first part of Isaiah that we've been working through, and we've been working through it as a chiasm. And so on the outer ring, we had the two kings. We had Ahaz, who had no faith. We had Hezekiah, who was faithful. Ahaz fears the circumstances around him, and he tries to manipulate the gods so he can control his future. Hezekiah has the same fear, but he leaves it in God's hands. He lays it out before the Lord, and he says, you're in control. You're sovereign. You take this. But in both cases, God meets the kings exactly where they are. For Ahaz, who has no faith, God meets him right there. And he says, test me. Test me. I want to give you some faith. I want to give you something you can be assured of. And we read through chapter 7, 8, and 9, where he does several things to try to give Ahaz some faith because he had none. And then for Hezekiah, God also meets Hezekiah exactly where he is. And Hezekiah sees it as a hopeless situation, and God gives him hope, and he shows him his end game, what's going to happen, and which gives him hope for the future. Then we went to the blue sections, the next parallel sections, and we looked at these two series of judgments. And it was interesting when we read through that is they both have a similar type of pattern or a theme that judgment, they both had a purpose. They exceeded that purpose or failed that purpose. And judgment is due. But in both cases, both Israel and the nations will have restoration. So it's a message of hope in the midst of the judgment. And then that brings us into this section, which the Sandra Richter titled The Little Apocalypse, and I've titled it The Tale of Two Cities. Because what this is also a parallel construction comparing an old city subject to judgment and a new city with what promises to come. And that's going to kind of lead us into the finish of this first part of the book. It would have been much better to end this next week before Christmas, because if you think about just the Christmas carols we sang today, we have, "O come, all ye faithful." And last week we sang, "O come, all ye unfaithful," if you recall. It's an invitation. And part of what I'm pulling out of this two cities is it's an invitation. Christmas time is an invitation. God comes to us and he invites us to come to him. The second part of the Christmas story, and Jeff sort of hinted at it, we sang comfort and joy. What's going to happen after judgment is a time of comfort. There's a hope there. And it's not just a soothing, but it's an opportunity to rejoice. And so we see that in the Christmas carols that we sing. This week, we're going to cover basically 24 and 27, which contrast the two cities. 25 and 26 are actually two praise songs. And that was the third thing that came up that I heard in the service this morning, is when we are invited to come, we are invited to come to worship. And it would fit perfectly if we ended on that theme. We'll finish that after Christmas, but that's just the way it works. All right, so what do you think about God's plan here? Is this how you would have done it?
Our ways are not God's way.
They're not. But when you think about this plan, I mean, if he's going to resolve all of this automatically anyway, I mean, if he's gonna take the initiative and he's gonna send his son and he's going to take on the punishment and he's going to give us a path to forgiveness and a path to eternal life, wouldn't you have done it differently than that?
Yes.
Oh, ye have no opinion.
No, I'm just saying, I can't imagine, seriously, the love that God must have for us,
Yeah,
that
to
he
do that.
sacrificed his son. I don't know if I could do that. I wouldn't do it, no, but that's such tremendous love. And to have his son go through all that humiliation, shame, and pain and suffering.
Right.
Horrible, horrific death.
Would you have taken as long as God did to do that? Because this says, centuries of preparation to get to the point where Jesus comes.
Well, I think he probably gave man a long rope, get it right, how many times, like Jeff said today, how many times I gotta tell the kids
There you
over and
go.
over, clean up your life.
Yeah.
And I think, man, just, he said they need more, they need hope.
Well, you could say the same thing about now, in today's age.
Yeah. Yeah. How much rope do we have?
Yeah.
Because there is another judgment coming. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I got to thinking about that, and I think Paul has sort of the same, he kind of questions it in the same way. And so I wanted to start at this section, which you might find this surprising, but I'm going to start this and we're going to read a little bit of Romans 3, because I think the same argument is being made. And that's going to really lead us into how Isaiah presents this story. So, Cindy, I'll just start with you, and we'll start with Romans 3.
It's got yellow. Is it okay for me to read?
Yes, it's okay for you to read.
She's tough. Oh, she's tough. She's not letting you off.
What then is the advantage of being a Jew? Or what is the value of circumcision? Much in every way. First of all, they have been entrusted with the very words of God. What if some did not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Certainly not. Let God be true and every man a liar, as it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and victorious when you judge.
I'm a little confused.
Why, you have yellow on it?
No, no, I'm just confused. There's really no reason for it. So we know Romans 3. You know the famous verse out of Romans 3, right? All of sin and fall short of the glory of God. We all know that verse. Well, this is where Paul is bringing his argument. And he's comparing the difference between the nations, the Gentiles, and the children of Israel, children of promise. And he says, well, there was an advantage. Why did God do it this way? Why did God choose this plan to bring about salvation? And he says, well, for one thing, they've been entrusted with the very words of God. God chose to reveal himself through this people. They didn't earn that. He called Abram out of the land of Ur, wherever that is, Mesopotamia, and said, I'm gonna lead you somewhere. I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do or how it's going to happen or how I'm going to provide for you. You're going to follow me? And he says, yes. So he's obedient there. And the story unfolds, and it's several thousand years of a story that's unfolding with a lot of trial and a lot of pain, a lot of amazing revelation of God's glory and power, and a lot of failing. But God still chose to do it that way. He still chose it. And Paul brings that. And he says, I would rather for God to be true and every man a liar. I would rather have God's plan than whatever we came up with, thinking we could do it a different way or a better way. Let's continue on.
But if our unrighteousness highlights the righteousness of God, what shall we say? That God is unjust to inflict his wrath on us? I am speaking in human terms. Certainly not in that case. How could God judge the world? However, if my falsehood accentuates God's truthfulness, to the increase of his glory, why am I still condemned as a sinner? Why not say, as some slanderously claim that we say, let us do evil that good may result? Their condemnation is deserved.
Here he argues the absurd,
Ugh.
right? So, well, if God's praised because we sin, why don't we sin more? You know, why don't we even be more disobedient?
Mhm.
You know, why aren't we even more idolatrous? Because then God will be praised. So it's the absurd argument.
Yeah.
That's the absurd argument. But there is an interesting question there. If God sets up a law, we talked about this, we did Exodus too, I think. If God sets up a law that we can't satisfy, why are we judged for that? Because we can't satisfy that law. We all know that. Is God just to inflict his wrath on us? How would you answer that question if a skeptic asked that of you?
He don't make perfect people.
Mm.
He just doesn't, because then you're like him.
Yeah,
They will be like us if they eat from the tree,
yeah, Yeah.
but we're not.
yeah.
We're not.
No.
There's gotta be some humble in there, and when you're a god too, you can't be humble to the other god. And he had that problem with the angels that he had to cast down too. They followed the devil, if you will,
Yeah.
the third of them.
Yeah.
Okay, and here's your
We're
third
gonna,
number.
we're gonna hit that today too, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
But
a-
Paul's, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just, it's a correction. God is unjust he's not unjust to inflict his wrath on us because he's correcting us as a father would do to the child
Right.
to help us go
Yeah.
the right path.
And the standard is perfection.
Mhm.
The standard isn't pretty good.
Yeah.
The standard isn't better than others. The standard's perfection.
And
Yes.
everybody's judged, but not everybody will endure the punishment.
Well, we have Christ.
Right.
Christ took the punishment for us,
Right.
so we don't have to. That's one of the benefits of the gift, as Dennis talked about this morning.
Like
Excellent.
Pastor was saying, all we need to do is obey.
Yeah,
Obey
it's
his
just,
word.
it's that simple.
Mhm.
It's like part of the Chosen in season 5, I saw a preview, and it's the new, no, I take that back, it was season 4. Matthew says, all I have to do today is follow him. That's all.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Keep
Yeah.
it simple.
Yeah, and it's like, and they made shirts, I wanna do it, I want a shirt, all I have to do today is obey.
Yeah, yeah. This one's yours, Cindy.
What then? Are we any better? Not at all. For we have already made the charge that Jews and Greeks alike are all under sin. As it is written, there is no one righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands, no one who seeks God. All have turned away. We have together become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one.
Yeah, now Paul's quoting two Psalms there. Psalm 14 and Psalm 53. And in both of those Psalms, you'll read the phrase, the fool says in his heart, there is no God.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's not that they're not atheists, because there was no atheist in this time period. That kind of arrogance hasn't come until our time period. But but because they don't understand who God is and God's nature, because they don't understand the fear of the Lord, they have no wisdom. They don't understand what God's doing. They don't understand this magnificent plan, as Isaiah calls it. And whether you're a Jew or not a Jew, whether you're under the law or not under the law, whether you're circumcised or uncircumcised, Paul will argue, you're under sin. You have failed, and judgment is due. And there is none righteous, as the psalmist says. There is no one who understands. We're all in the same boat. And of course, his argument here is going to get us to faith, not works. But he's laying the groundwork of saying nations or Israel, Gentiles or Israel, nobody's going to qualify based on their own. And we'll keep going.
Now we know that whatever the law says, it says it to those who are under the law. So that every mouth may be silenced and the whole world be held accountable to God. Therefore, no one will be justified in his sight by works of the law. For the law merely brings awareness of sin.
And this is the argument of the Jews. Well, if you're like us, if you come circumcised like us, this was the argument in Paul's day, then you're on the path to God if you obey the Sabbath.
Mhm,
We had that same argument.
mhm.
Then you are there. And no, the law is not going to justify you. The law is not going to make you right with God. No, that's not what's going to happen. It only points out where you've fallen short.
Mhm.
The Pharisees worked that both ways.
Yeah, of
They
course.
did, they was working both sides of that one. Now, look what I'm doing, and then.
Yeah, look how holy I am. My attitude's all wrong,
Yeah,
but
oh,
by,
yeah.
by God, my
They-
spices are laid out in tents.
They would pick somebody out of the crowd and then compare.
Right,
And boy,
Right.
oh boy, what a day.
yeah. And no, we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're all under the same umbrella. Yeah. Thank
But
you.
now, apart from the law, the righteousness of God has been revealed as attested by the law and the prophets. And this righteousness from God comes through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. There is no distinction, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus.
Yeah, and this ought to be really familiar to us, because I'm sure we've all read this verse at least once in our life. But this is where some of this leveling occurs. That the Jews might have said, we have been entrusted with the very words of God, and that's true. They had been. They absolutely had been. But now there's a revelation that's outside of that. That's not through the people of Israel. It's universal. It's Jesus and what he has done. And so what he has done is for both Jews and Gentiles. It's for both the nations and the children of Israel. And this is one of the messages of Isaiah that they missed. We went through the two judgments in our little chiasm, and we saw that judgments was coming. Justice was due. God was going to act. But in both cases, in both a parallel construction there is hope for Israel and there's hope for the nations. And then Paul now argues, well, that hope is here. That hope is in Christ. That hope is revealed to all of us now through Jesus. And since we all have sinned, we all have the same opportunity of salvation as we are justified freely by his grace. We'll complete this two more little slides here.
God presented him as the atoning sacrifice through faith in his blood, in order to demonstrate his righteousness, because in his forbearance he had passed over the sins committed beforehand. He did this to demonstrate his righteousness at the present time, so as to be just and to justify the one who has faith in Jesus.
And this is the work of Christ, not only to make us whole, but to also not violate the character of God. And that's why judgment was rendered on the cross, because it was due for our sins. And so he is just, and he's the justifier, and he makes it right, because he executes the judgment as he is right to do. But then he offers it to us freely. It's our gift, as Dennis said, at communion.
I guess it's me.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Where then is boasting? It is excluded. On what principle? On what works? No, but on that of faith. For we maintain that a man is justified by faith apart from the works of the law. Is God the God of Jews only? Is he not the God of Gentiles too? Yes, of Gentiles too. Since there is only one God who will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through that same faith.
Yeah, so where's the boasting? There's no boasting here.
Mm.
We're all guilty. We're all subject to judgment. We all have the gift offered that allows us to accept the payment that God's already made, so that we can be justified. And it's universal. It's for all. Isaiah points us to this. And we'll see, we trace that through the two judgments. We'll see it in the second half of the book, much more. He points us to this, but somehow along the way, that got lost. But Paul reiterates it here, and then we'll finish up. No, that did finish it up.
So you said 2 more verses.
Huh?
You said 2 more verses.
What was that,
Verses.
31?
Yeah.
31.
Hmm.
31.
I guess I gotta follow my notes. It'll be a lot easier that way. Oh, I am where I wanted to be. I knew what I wanted to say. It's just on this, it's this slide. So that brings us back to Isaiah. Paul makes this argument. Why did God plan it this way? Well, he chose to reveal himself through the Jews, but now he's revealing himself universally. And he leaves us with this choice. It's a gift of eternal life, but it's ours to choose whether or not to accept it. And that theme of choice, we're going to see throughout this section that we're going to read here, the Tale of Two Cities. And this isn't Denver and Atlanta. Right.
Generally.
No, this is the old Jerusalem, again, the personification of our spiritual state. Represented by the physical place and the physical destruction that's there. But this is what sin does. And then we have the image of the second city, the New Jerusalem. And this is where God dwells and sin is no more. And it really truly is a choice for us. Which city do you want to live in? And so Isaiah is going to paint the contrast of the two cities and lead us to that same point. Now, Sandra Richter called this a little apocalypse, and where's the big apocalypse at?
Revelation.
It's in Revelation. And what is the apocalypse?
Armageddon,
Armageddon.
Armageddon,
Battle
Okay,
of Armageddon.
more. That's a place.
Jesus' return.
Okay, but there's more than that. The apocalypse means
The
more than that.
Judgment. The
Judgment, that's
the,
part of it.
mhm.
Isn't it the battle of good and evil?
There you go. That's what I want. It's the battle.
Okay.
It's a fight. There's two
And
sides.
we win.
And we
And
win.
we win.
Yeah, that's Jeff said. Yeah, so you have,
Spoiler alert.
yeah, well, who are the two? It's a battle, so who are the two sides?
Good.
Good and evil,
Mhm,
God and Satan.
God and Satan,
mhm.
the powers of heaven and the powers of earth, the prince of the earth, king of heaven and the prince of the earth. It's an epic battle. It's the whole story of the Bible, really shown in this one scene, this one battle, where God will overcome the powers of darkness. And we're going to see that in the comparison of the two cities. But we'll also see that out of that comes how God redeems. And so if we just kind of look at these in a little outline, the first part of this, he's going to predict the judgment that's due. And then he's going to praise that judgment will come. And that's the piece we're actually going to do next week. The price that judgment will extract and the peace then that will ensue because God acts. Okay, and so I think, are we back to you?
Yeah.
Oh, let's start.
Well,
I love the way you start everything.
See, the Lord is going to lay waste the earth and devastate it. He will ruin its face and scatter its inhabitants. It will be the same for priest as for people, for the master as for his servant, for the mistress as for her servant, for the seller as for the buyer, for borrower as for the lender, for debtor as for creditor.
The earth will be completely laid waste and totally plundered. The Lord has spoken this word.
Sounds like a definitive word to me. You read that in Revelation too?
Yeah.
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 Seal upon seal,
Mhm.
trumpet upon trumpet,
Mhm.
bowl upon
Bowl,
bowl,
bowl.
wrath is poured out.
Yep.
And what happens to the earth?
And it goes up in fire.
It's destroyed.
Gone.
And then what happens?
The New Jerusalem.
Then you have a New Jerusalem. So you have
Really
this
big.
remaking, this rebirth. John paints the same picture.
Mm.
Of course, he's doing it from the perspective of Jesus being that king Jesus being the victor at Armageddon, Jesus being the conqueror of that. Isaiah's looking before that. He's not sure quite how God's going to do this. He's confident God's going to do this because he's revealing what God has revealed to him. But he's pointing us in that very same direction. Just a couple of things out of these first couple of verses. One is that he's going to lay waste. So there is going to be this destruction that's going to happen. How do you know it's complete when you read these verses?
It doesn't sound like it's the end.
Hmm?
It doesn't sound like it's the end.
Does,
No.
Well, it says the earth will be completely laid waste and totally plundered.
yeah,
Scattered its inhabitants.
Yeah.
yeah.
So people will still be on the earth and, but everybody will be the same level, no rulers or
Well, where are you reading that?
Well,
for priests as for people.
that's what I wanted to
masters
get
for
at.
servant.
Yeah. Who's excluded in that list?
I don't see followers of Christ.
The faithful.
It doesn't say the faithful,
Oh. It's all the.
but it is a universal thing.
Mhm.
It's the priest, well, that's the religious people. They would be, yes, they would. They're subject, just like you and I are sinners, they're sinners too. How about the one that has some power? No, the powerful is not there.
Mhm.
Same with the lady of the house. Seller and the buyer, there's no distinction there. The borrower, well, no distinction there. Doesn't matter which side of the bank desk you're on. You're going to subject to the same, the debtor or the creditor, the same way. We're all subject to this. We're all, as Paul says, we all fall short of the glory of God. We're all subject to the same judgment. And then we finish this verse where he just kind of reiterates, it will be completely and totally. Those are adjectives that mean there's not a lot of exceptions here.
Mhm.
Okay, let's read this next little section.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
The earth dries up and withers. The world languishes and withers. The heavens languish with the earth. The earth is defiled by its people. They have disobeyed the laws, violated the statutes, and broken the everlasting covenant.
Mm.
Therefore, a curse consumes the earth, its people must bear their guilt. Therefore, earth's inhabitants are burned up, and very few are left. The new wine dries up and the vine withers. All the merrymakers groan, the joyful timbrels are stilled. Timbrels are stilled. The noise of the revelers has stopped, and the joyful harp is silent. No longer do they drink wine with a song. The beer is bitter to its drinkers.
The ruined city lies desolate. The entrance to every house is barred. In the streets they cry out for wine. All joy turns to gloom. All joyful sounds are banished from the earth. The city is left in ruins. Its gate is battered to pieces.
So will it be on the earth and among the nations, as when an olive tree is beaten, or as when gleanings are left after the grape harvest.
Very happy thought there, huh?
Mm.
depressing,
Huh?
pretty depressing, again.
Yeah, well, remember, it's a contrast. So you're seeing the dark side, now you're gonna see the light side here in a minute. But, earth dries up. We talked about the desert and water and the rebirth
Mhm.
before, but this is the cursing. This is the earth dries up, and the water of life is no longer there. The world languishes, the heavens languish, that it's not just on earth, it's in heaven too. And then why? Well, it's defiled by the people who disobeyed the laws, violated the statutes, broke the everlasting covenant. We started this whole section with a discussion on faith and obedience,
Mhm.
right? Paul leads us to faith, but the judgment, is there because of the disobedience. So both of those are important to God. And it's because of this inability to live righteously, this judgment is coming. Therefore, that's a reason, right? Therefore, what's the therefore? It's there for a reason. the disobedience, the violations of broken covenant. For this reason, the party's over. So then there's no merrymaker, there's no revelers, there's no music. You think about what you enjoy in life, eat, drink, and be merry. That's enjoying life. We hear that at this time of year often. That's gone. That's gone because judgment is coming. And this ruined city, this place where this happens, this spiritual state that we're in, is left in ruins. And there's nothing there. Physically, that happens for the exile, but spiritually, that happens because we have nothing to offer God. We're desolate. And it's not just for the Jews. It's over the whole earth. It's for all the nations. And so we have this picture of this city subject to judgment, this spiritual state subject to the judgment. The same judgment that Paul reminds us of, that we're all guilty and fall short of the glory of God. And so that's what we're subject to.
And the wages of sin are death,
And the wages of sin are death.
right?
It's interesting because it says in my Bible that Isaiah his prophecy was first directed to Judah, then to Israel, then to the surrounding nations, and finally to the whole world. That's what
Yeah.
we keep hearing about it.
There's really not a lot of room for exclusion. I think Richard read that verse that says very few are left. Very few. Now, he will leave a remnant. He promises that. But this destruction is there. All right, we read one more little section here.
They raise their voices, they shout for joy. From the west, they acclaim the Lord's majesty. Therefore, in the east, give glory to the Lord. Exalt the name of the Lord, the God of Israel, in the islands of the sea. From the ends of the earth, we hear singing, glory to the righteous one. But I said, I waste away, woe to me, the treacherous betray. With treachery, the treacherous betray.
Terror and pit and snare await you, people of the earth. Whoever flees at the sound of terror will fall into a pit. Whoever climbs out of the pit will be caught in a snare. The floodgates of the heavens are open, the foundation of the earth shake. The earth is broken up, the earth is split asunder, the earth is violently shaken.
So
The earth reels like a drunkard, it sways like a hut in the wind. So heavy upon it is the guilt of its rebellion that it falls, never to rise again. In that day the Lord will punish the powers in the heavens above and the kings on the earth below.
They will be herded together like prisoners bound in a dungeon. They will be shut up in prison and be punished after many days. The moon will be dismayed, the sun ashamed, for the Lord Almighty will reign on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and before its elders with great glory.
okay, at least it finishes on a note.
Mm,
I mean, that's a sobering section.
it is.
I think
Let's,
of the Newsboys song,
Yeah.
He reigns.
They raise their voices. Who's the they here?
Angels.
The believers, right?
Yeah.
Why are they raising their voices in a shout for joy?
Victory.
Because you know what's happening. I mean, you know what's going to come after this. It's this several verses of destruction. So why are they shouting for joy?
That's what they want to see. They want to see the righteous one coming. They want to see their Messiah.
Right.
They're looking for their Messiah still.
When we say, "Come, Lord Jesus," we don't say that just because we're looking forward to Jesus. We're saying that because we're looking at the world
Okay.
and we think God needs to act. And I think these people are looking at it the same way. This world is due. Judgment is necessary. It's right for God to do this. And so they're shouting because God is acting.
Mm,
Now I rise up, we read earlier, last week actually, to act, to take this act. But Isaiah hears this and kind of says, uh-oh, I know myself.
Mhm.
I am one of those, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. I know who I am. Woe is me. Because if God acts the way we think he should, with true justice, universal justice, I have no hope.
Hmm.
I have no hope. We read the promise, the last verse. We'll get there again here in a second. And this ought to be a little scary when the floodgates of heaven open. We talked about in Revelation the seals,
Mhm.
and then the bowls and the trumpets. And you read about in Revelation the destruction, the damage, the catastrophes that occur, the pain and suffering that occurs. And I think Isaiah has this very similar image here as the floodgates are opened, the earth shakes, it's torn asunder, it's broken up. I mean, this is big stuff. This isn't isolated to, a field in Iowa. This is universal. This is big deal. In that day, when God chooses to act, this one that people are calling for, and we see how devastating this action is going to be. We read it in Revelation, we read it here in Isaiah, that he will punish the powers in the heaven.
Mhm.
There's the rebellious ones, right? And the kings of the earth below, those that are causing damage and injustice here. Heaven and earth are both subject to this judgment. And then they're cast into this dungeon. Don't we have that in Revelation as well? Isn't there a
Yeah,
casting?
Revelation 2, they say there's no place to hide. You go to the mountains, the
The
caves,
caves.
the caves, there's no place to hide.
We can't hide from it.
Yeah.
And then he gathers Satan
Mhm.
and his followers and he throws them into the
Pit, the
abyss,
bottomless,
the
yeah,
pit.
bottomless
Right.
pit, yeah.
So they're herded together like prisoners bound in a dungeon. They'll be shut up in prison and be punished. And it's that same image that John has in Revelation. Again, they must have the same God or see the same vision or reveal the same thing because they're describing very similar type actions here. But then there's this hope. There's hope that even though this is happening, God himself will somehow, and I don't think Isaiah understands how yet, but somehow God will reign. And he'll reign on Mount Zion, on Jerusalem. And he'll reign with great glory. And we know that because we're on this side of the cross. The great glory isn't because he judged. The great glory is that he showed mercy.
Mhm.
And he showed mercy because he allowed his son to take the judgment that we're due and to offer us hope in this new city. So that's sort of that's chapter 24. And Isaiah reaches this point of understanding this terrible judgment that's going to come and how devastating it's going to be. But he sees that the Lord's going to come out on this and he's going to be glorified. And I think he begins to understand how or why God will be glorified. And so he breaks into a praise of song. Lord, you are my God. I will exalt you and praise your name. For in perfect faithfulness, you've done wonderful things planned long ago. We will read next week, chapter 25 and 26, which are two praise songs. And this is just how this starts. And I found it really interesting is that these praise songs are in the middle of all this judgment. And I think Isaiah begins to see, God, I don't know how you have it figured out. It's not the way I would do it, as we started our conversation.
Mhm.
It's not the way I would have done it or the timing that I would have done, but I'm beginning to see how you are somehow you are going to execute the judgment that's due. You are going to be righteous. You are going to be true and just in your actions. But somehow, in some way, the promises that you've made to our fathers, the promises that you've made to your people, somehow in your plan, you're going to make that work out. And it's going to be glorious. It is a wonderful plan. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's not how I would do it. But it is a wonderful plan. And so Isaiah launches into a couple of songs that just really praise God. And that was one of the things that came out when I was we were singing this morning, is that when we come at Christmas time, we come and worship. Because I think we understand that little baby in the manger is not just a baby in the manger.
Mhm,
It's the fulfillment of what Isaiah talks about here. It's the fulfillment of what John talks about. That God has a plan, God made a way for you and I to have it everlasting life. And still be true to his nature. Not the way I would have done it. But his ways are higher than mine.
mhm.
All right, let's now switch gears to the new city. The other city. So this is the section we'll read here, so we'll skip over to 2620. And then
Yeah, thank you.
you're again, okay, you,
Where are we at? We're on 26.
2620, yeah.
Thought we were gonna go to 27.
Well, this is the last part of 26,
Okay,
but the chapters are arbitrary.
okay, fine. Go, my people, enter your rooms and shut the doors behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until his wrath has passed. Kind of like the blood on the door.
Yeah,
Passover, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. See, the Lord is coming out of his dwelling to punish the people of the earth for their sins. The earth will disclose the bloodshed on it. The earth will conceal its slain no longer.
In that day, the Lord will punish with his sword, his fierce, great, and powerful sword. Leviathan, the gliding serpent, Leviathan, the coiling serpent, he will slay the monster of the sea.
That's so funny because I just read that to her when I put in the search.
Yeah.
For serpent,
Yeah,
and I read that. In that day, sing about a fruitful vineyard. I, the Lord, watch over it. I water it continually. I guard it day and night, so that no one may harm it. I am not angry. If only there were briars and thorns confronting me, I would march against them in battle. I would set them all on fire.
Or else let them come to me for refuge. Let them make peace with me. Yes, let them make peace with me. In days to come, Jacob will take root. Israel will bud and blossom and fill the world with fruit. Has the Lord struck her? Has he struck down those who struck her? Has she been killed? As those were killed who killed her?
By warfare and exile, you contend with her.
Hmm.
With his fierce blast, he drives her out. As on a day the east wind blows. By this then will Jacob's guilt be atoned for. And this will be the full fruit of the removal of his sin. When he makes all the altar stones be like limestone crushed to pieces. No Asherah poles or incense altars will be left standing.
The fortified city stands desolate, an abandoned settlement, forsaken like the wilderness. There the calves graze, there they lay down. They strip its branches bare. When its twigs are dry, they are broken off, and women come and make fire with them. For this is a people without understanding. So their maker has no compassion on them, and their creator shows them no favor.
and final.
In that day, the Lord will fresh from the flowing of Euphrates to the Wadi of Egypt. And you, Israel, will be gathered up one by one. And in that day, a great trumpet will sound. Those who were perishing in Assyria and those who were exiled in Egypt will come and worship the Lord on the holy mountain in Jerusalem.
Looking forward to that great trumpet.
Mhm.
What, with this, going back to 2620 here, what gives you an indication of at least a glimpse of hope in the midst of the devastation that's coming?
That we could be spared of his wrath.
Hide yourselves for a little while.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
temporary thing.
Yeah.
The judgment's coming, but it's not forever.
Mhm.
There's a hope that something will come after this. The judgment will come. It'll be hard. But there's something after that. It kind of hints at it. And you talked about Leviathan. And that, of course, we're going to find that in Revelation. So And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed in the sun and with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head. And she was pregnant and crying out in the pain and agony of giving birth. And then another sign appeared in heaven, a huge red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 royal crowns on his head. His tail swept a third of the stars from the sky, tossing them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, ready to devour her child as soon as she gave birth. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness where God has prepared a place for her to be nourished for 12,060 days. Well, this isn't a study on Revelation.
But boy, is there a lot there.
But what?
There's a lot there.
Yeah, boy, there's a lot there.
Mhm.
So in John MacArthur's commentary, the woman here is Israel,
Israel.
right? And the dragon is Satan.
Mhm.
Rich, you mentioned about the third that followed Satan. Well,
Mhm.
that tail is going to sweep them out of heaven, right? And they're going to be subject to judgment into the abyss.
And her 12 stars are the 12 tribes of Israel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and the sun,
right,
right,
giving birth to a solution to this problem.
right.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the same sort of vision that Isaiah is painting, that Leviathan will be done away with. This creature of chaos, this creature of where we're not right with God because of our sin. That's going to be dealt with. That's going to be done with. And John points it. Similar images as Isaiah, but they're both pointing to the same time, the same thing that will happen. And in that day, and then when that day comes, in that day, future time, we have that image of the vineyard.
Mhm.
That's what Israel was described, right?
Mhm.
And so for Isaiah's audience, that should trigger we were the vineyard. We're God's vineyard. And God's still there. And God's still watching over it. And there will be a time when he's not angry with it, when that judgment will be done. And that God will be the defender of them. So when evil comes again, he will be the consuming fire that destroys the chaff of their lives.
Yeah, what keeps coming up to me in my mind is the saying that I bring you into this world and I can take you out. And the parents, sometimes in anger,
Yeah.
but God seems to do that a lot too, though.
Yeah.
He just lets you know,
Yeah.
I am the one
Right.
who created you. I created all this, but I can also,
I have the
and
right
he's
to.
done it.
Yeah.
The floods,
He is in
the
control.
famines,
Right.
Mhm.
and back in 20, it says, go home, my people, and lock your doors. Well, he said, just put some blood on the doorpost and then I'll pass by and we won't take your
Yeah.
firstborn.
Yeah.
He's got a way of keeping things right,
Right.
but you gotta listen.
Always preserves a remnant.
Yeah,
Always
always a
preserves.
remnant too,
Right. Because his plan
is to,
won't work if everybody dies.
Yeah.
well, no, yeah, and
Yeah.
it is to get you right though with him.
He'll wipe us
The
all
whole
out.
thing is to get you right with him,
Right.
so I can take you out, it's a little threatening there, of course, but that's
Yeah.
the wrath of God.
Yeah.
He only wants the best for eternity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why you say
Mhm.
that to him.
You're reaching the same conclusion I reached. Well,
Okay.
just let's get these other
Okay.
slides out of the way. We'll get there. One of the themes you see through Isaiah is this destruction will come, death, destruction, whatever, but there's this hope. And it was the branch, it was the shoot, it was the desert blooming, it's the wilderness coming to life. And we have that same image there. Israel, bud and blossom, it'll be restored.
Yeah,
And it will fill the world with fruit. We talked about the whole image of the vineyard, the whole purpose of Israel was to provide fruit. And if it doesn't provide fruit, it's cut down. But there will be this time when it will have this rebirth, this it'll be re-energized. And it'll be a fruit-bearing nation again. Jacob's guilt will be atoned for. We know how that happens. How does sin atone for? There's a sacrifice.
Blood.
Blood is spilled, right? They know that, they understand that, and we understand that because that's what happens on the cross. And then that sin is removed. I have a by this then, but I don't remember what I said.
Can you explain again what Asherah pole is?
It,
I
it,
knew it once upon a time, but I don't remember.
it's a goddess, I think it was a goddess that they worship.
Yeah.
And so it's basically a symbol of the idolatry.
Okay.
Idols,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know the particular of what, I don't know if it's a fertility goddess or, I don't know that, but it's always there as a symbol of idolatry.
Yeah.
Oh, by this judgment, then this salvation will happen.
Mm.
And then now we see the old city is destroyed. A fortified city, the thing you thought was going to save you isn't there. It becomes desolate. But
Pharisees would use their righteousness, basically.
Yeah.
would stand on them laws and that,
it doesn't work.
well, yeah.
Yeah, it's desolate. It doesn't work. But in that day, in this future time, everybody will be gathered up and come to the holy mountain in Jerusalem. And we saw this image of the city being reborn as people are gathered in, no longer subject to the sin of their life in their life.
Isn't that gathered up one by one, so personal,
There
Mm.
you go.
You know, that's
There you
a
go.
great point. I
Yeah.
didn't think about
Right.
that.
Yeah.
rather than just
Yeah,
All of us at once, one by one.
let you, Dorothy.
yeah,
Isn't that nice? It used to be.
yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
very personal.
yeah.
When you started out asking, how would you do it? You know, no, that's what I was thinking though, but God knows how to do it for everybody. 'Cause
Right.
I can only really look from my perspective.
Right, right.
And so my perspective don't work as great, and same as yours,
Right.
so that's why there's so many different opinions. But God can feed everybody.
Right. That's a good point.
He really does, and that's why it's a one by one, even though he's doing it all, it's still as personal as one by one. No doubt about it.
And what's interesting about that is it's not just I'm going to pluck you out of the earth one by one. It's I'm going to offer this choice to you.
Mhm.
And you have an individual response to it.
Mhm.
You can accept it or reject it. I'm going to reveal what I've done. I'm going to reveal why I've done this. I'm going to reveal my character. And as you compare your character to that, you know you're going to fall short of the glory.
Mhm.
And you're offered something here, and you have a choice. Well, I think John recognized that exact same idea. That Christ had already come. The cross has already passed. Christ has already been raised from the dead. He's already ascended into heaven. John's given this vision. Christ himself is revealing to him within that vision. And then John ends. Well, let me say this first. John writes his gospel for the purpose of many other things have been done, but these have been written so that you may believe. These have been written so that you can accept this gift and understand it and accept it. You can make this choice. And he ends Revelation in a very similar way. And we'll just read this here. Cindy, that's you, if you're okay.
Look, I am coming soon. My reward is with me, and I will give to each person according to what they have done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. The Spirit and the bride say, come, and let the one who hears say, come. Let the one who is thirsty come, and let the one who wishes take the free gift of the water of life.
John gives us that choice at the end of Revelation. God gives us that choice at the end of Revelation. The Spirit and the bride say, come, come, accept this. And let the one who hears invite as well. Let the one who's thirsty come, come, come. It's offered for you. There's a choice to be made. And that invitation is made. Come. If you're thirsty, come. If you want life, come. Life is offered. What do you choose? Isaiah has that same idea in this contrast to the two cities. And we're going to read next week the praise songs, which is Isaiah's response to that.
Next time we meet.
Next time we meet, the 29th. All right, well, let me conclude this. I didn't plan this. I just picked this picture and the little caption that we started this study with, because I thought it was kind of a neat statue.
Mhm.
Well, on the bottom of the statue, it's written in Latin, whatever that means in Latin.
Venites means come.
Right, and that's exactly what it means.
Mhm.
Come to me,
everyone.
everyone.
Very good.
So it's, and this is one of these
Mm.
Spirit move.
spirit, I didn't plan it at all. But,
Mm,
but I
innocent.
remember this picture and I saw the caption on the little picture, which is cut out here from the bottom. What does that mean? And that's what it means. It's Christ's invitation.
So you had picked the picture, then you had done the work in the study, and then you went to see what the inscription really meant.
Mhm.
Right,
And it was exactly what the whole study
Yeah.
part was.
yeah,
Like, he came down in tears.
yeah, it was,
Oh, definitely, that's, yeah,
It's got it.
definitely.
Mhm.
And you
Well-
know, the question is, why are we always surprised? Well, I mean, you know, when things come together and I'm saying, oh my, and I'm saying, why am I say, thank you, Lord, because I know it's not, there's not a coincidence going on here. And yet we're still surprised, you know? But I think it's wonderful you recognize it.
It was so
That's the
coincidental
whole
it was,
thing.
it was entirely coincidental.
that
And
we've
it's just,
even taken the picture.
Yeah.
right,
Was, I mean, even taken the picture, that we were even there.
yeah. Yeah. So I guess I can conclude this little section of Isaiah is that the Tale of Two Cities does present a choice, just like John does in Revelation. It's a contrast. You can choose this path and it leads to destruction, or you can choose this path and it leads to, you know, the city where God dwells. It's a picture of God's incredible grace and mercy, because we all have fallen short and are all subject to judgment. And yet, a way is created and an invitation is extended. Come. I offer salvation in the midst of certain judgment.
Mm,
Come.
amazing, amazing grace.
That's where we'll conclude. Let me stop this here real quick.
Who was that picture? You college?
Yes, from University of Notre Dame.
What?
University of Notre Dame.